Well, good afternoon and welcome to Smithsonian Gardens Let's Talk Gardens webinar. We appreciate you joining us for this important topic. Although I must say all of our topics are important. I have the best job in the world because I get to talk to so many different scientists, artists, designers. It is really the perfect job for me and I really enjoy it. But my name is Cindy Brown. I am the manager of collections, education, and access here at Smithsonian Gardens. And we bring these speakers to you so that you can learn more about gardening, landscaping, tree care, all different topics. We want to create an informed audience and an informed group of people that can go out and help us spread information on some of these important topics. So as always, we ask you to please put your questions in the chat box. And then when our speaker has concluded, I'll be glad to transfer the questions to her so that she can answer in the time that we have available. I know we always want to learn more and we always want to ask questions. So people have said, can you make it a 2-hour program? No, people won't sit still for a 2-hour program. But today, I'd like to introduce you to Jennifer Dowdell, and she is going to talk to you about a special type of design. We had an interesting conversation ahead of time talking about how wonderful it is seeing people and design and practices moving to more sustainable practices, more sustainable design. And so that's exactly what she's going to share with us today. So as always, Jennifer, I'm thrilled to have you here with us. I am so excited to hear what you're going to share. And I'm going to leave. I say we because Zach is still here. He's behind the scene helping us, but we are going to leave you, but only in sight. We'll be back here to be able to handle anything that comes up. So with that, will you please tell us more about Biohabitats and what you do and some of these fascinating designs? We appreciate your information.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cindy, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to join you today to talk a little bit about our work in really focusing on centering ecology and biodiversity in a variety of design and planning projects that we contribute to. So really briefly, I'm going to first just introduce the firm that I work with. I work for Biohabitats. We are a national mission-based environmental design and consulting firm. And so we are organized around a set of values, including revering wild nature. And then our mission is really focused on supporting and celebrating and performing ecological restoration and supporting environmental stewardship. So we are an interdisciplinary design practice with a variety of different areas of expertise represented in our team. I have a background in landscape architecture and landscape ecology, but I am joined in our team by ecologists and hydrologists and a variety of different types of engineers who focus on water and water systems and integrated water strategies, as well as other specialists in ecology like arborists and soil scientists, and then our practitioners in GIS and technology like CAD who are helping bring our designs to be constructed. We're organized around kind of 3 main service areas, although we do work that kind of goes beyond the bounds of these as well, in conservation planning, ecological restoration, and regenerative design. And you see a little bit more about our mission here on this slide, really focusing on living in whole systems in an approach to design and consulting with a variety of different clients across the United States. So here, just a brief kind of overview of the types of work that we do organized within those practice areas, along with a practice area that's continuing to emerge in integrated water strategies, really focusing on water as it is part of many systems, but understanding the importance of managing water as we see different climate change impacts affecting our communities. But we work in all areas across the United States and are really organized in our practice by bioregion. This is actually a slightly outdated map at this time. We have a bioregion that is kind of coming out of the heartland as well in the middle of the United States. But we have bioregional offices in areas around the United States to allow for expertise focused on that native ecology and those native ecosystems to come out of those spaces and inform inform the design and consulting that we offer to communities and municipalities and other landowners. Now, the work that I want to really focus on today is focused on planning and design work that is really grounded in these ideas of understanding the importance of biodiversity, understanding the principles and applying the principles of landscape ecology, and understanding the myriad ecosystem services that we can contribute to in looking at restorative design in the landscape. So we like to take a pause and really think about some of the importance behind biodiversity and the importance of us as actors in implementing projects that help support biodiversity and help try to minimize loss of biodiversity, because it really has a huge impact on us as a society, on our planet, and our ability to live and function in this planet as community members of the greater ecology. Landscape ecology has a particularly important impact on the planning and design work that we do, because it is these principles of understanding the landscape and these systems, these ecosystems, as organizations of patches and corridors that really connect across. So this is a map of Baltimore cities from a green network plan that I worked on a number of years ago with the city planning department. And what's important about this is really this idea that while a project may have boundaries, either at the site or at the city scale, we look beyond those boundaries because we know the impact, the important impact of decisions that we might make that have larger impacts on the larger ecology, the larger ecosystem connections and corridors and system-wide conditions. So we always sort of ground ourselves in these principles of understanding these broader connections and those impacts then on whatever scale of work we might be working on with various clients or communities. We also see the importance of connecting with our community members in each of the areas and in each of the projects that we work on, and understanding what part of nature is really part of community's identity. What is the relationship communities have to nature, and how can we use that as a guiding light in looking at design and consultation that we might be doing with a variety of clients? So in terms of ecosystem services, some of what is more of the focus of a couple of the projects that I'll share with you all today come down to some pretty simple but very powerful ecosystem services that have to do with applying a diverse native plant palette in projects that might be about stormwater management, but we're kind of layering in that other component of potential habitat that can be added in with a diverse plant palette. And those plant palettes vary widely because we are working in communities around the United States and very specific needs of those different systems that are there. But a part of what you'll see today are a variety of different projects, some inland and upland, some coastal, where we're looking at water as a component of the landscape, managing water and runoff, but through bioengineered strategies, through different types of design systems that allow for a use of a plant palette that kind of builds on those functions in the landscape. So just a couple images to kind of arrest the senses here. So the first project I wanted to touch on was a project that we did here in Baltimore City, where I am based in our Chesapeake Bay region, really focused on managing stormwater, but also increasing the function of the landscape at Green Streets Academy, which is a high school in Baltimore City, not too far from our offices in Baltimore. And so there were a couple different components of the project, one being a restored pollinator meadow outside in the back of the high school with a variety of plants integrated, along with what they are doing in greenhouses in terms of some of the experiments supporting their science program. This is actually the planting design around our office in Baltimore, really trying to celebrate the native plant palette in, this is kind of the summer season. So you see a lot of those spectacular summer natives around the outside of the building. And then back at Green Streets Academy, integrating that native plant palette into rain planters that are designed along the edge of the building. Along with that, we also did a rain garden that has over time really matured with managing the surface runoff from the neighboring parking, but really supporting this broader plant palette than what was just turf beforehand. And these are practices that are becoming quite typical, I would say, in many municipalities and in many places, because there are increased needs to manage stormwater as we see further and further urbanized city centers, and wanting to really build on this idea of a functional landscape with green infrastructure that has all these other potential systems and services integrated in this layered approach. Just some images of those plants in their summer glory. The second project I wanted to touch on is quite different in both location. This one is in Philadelphia on the Delaware River, and this was done actually a number of years ago along the Delaware River. Kind of on the southern portion of the city, there was this old industrial site that had basically been capped and sort of paved, but it ran along what was becoming this Delaware River Greenway. And so they put out a design competition notice for an opportunity for design firms to propose what might be a new perspective, a new way of seeing this very tiny, I think it's a 1 acre parcel on the Delaware River, but to allow for some sort of storytelling about the Delaware River, the watershed, and native plants and native ecology, and the historic sort of legacy ecology. So Biohabitats submitted a design submission and we won the competition. So then we went about starting to really work on designing and then building this pocket park along the Delaware River Greenway that was kind of slowly being built up. So that's the project site beforehand. We did a kind of vision plan for the entirety of the site, not just the upland portion, but also this pier structure that was slowly sort of decomposing. So here are some images of that vision for a new multifunctional open space accessible to the river to invite people down to start to enjoy and understand what does ecological regeneration look like in a highly urbanized riverside site. But then in terms of implementation, we focused the initial phase of implementation on the upland and really trying to reflect and respond to the Delaware River watershed, ideas of watershed health and water quality, and increased habitat in a very urban area. So we focus on these kind of key project features and then started to engage with the community to start to develop some pilot projects. These were some really early pilot floating wetlands that we put in with the community. And then we planted and designed and constructed the site. Now, one challenge that we faced on this site was that it was wholly paved, and to remove all of the paving and all of the impervious surface would have used the entirety of the design and construction budget that was available. So we tried to find different creative uses of much of the permeable pavement to try to reuse it on site in a variety of ways so that we could then plant it and kind of create this garden-esque space on this pocket park, but not having to worry about transporting a lot of concrete off-site, which was just not affordable at the time with the project budget. So we have different components that we planted and designed with this reuse of material on site. And here, one of our main garden areas was a rubble meadow. So kind of taking that idea of the urban rubble and then interplanting it with a variety of native species. We also had 2 different areas that we called the dendritic decay gardens. Again, finding ways of kind of punching through and revealing sort of the history of the site, but while also starting to plant it with this idea that potentially over time, these plants and the root systems will slowly start to help crack and change this landscape so that it's constantly evolving and growing, but also highlighting, in this case, the Delaware River watershed and the dendritic patterns of our watersheds. You'll also see at the back of this photograph, we did some reuse of some of that concrete paving in creating seating walls around the edges. Here's a zoomed in perspective of some of those planting areas. And then some aerial perspectives of the rubble meadow in a slightly different season along a permeable asphalt walkway that was kind of part of the overall kind of longer trail system. We also integrated a BMP, a stormwater BMP, on an area that was naturally sloping towards the center of our site along the edge of the parking lot. So the vicinity of this park was the 2 kind of really important neighbors. One was the US Coast Guard just in the north of our site, and one was the Sheet Metal Workers Local 19 Training Center, which you can see part of behind the cars here. And so this was their parking lot, their area to come out and have lunch. So it was a great great way to really engage with our community adjacencies and neighbors through our design process. They came out and started to see and talk to us about what we were doing in the process of designing this other dendritic decay garden that was going to be a stormwater BMP. And this is a couple years later, after full build out and the plants really starting to mature. Now, we did have some issues with invasive species in the very foreground of this photograph. There are some invasives that are, I think, continually managed and maintained by the organization that now maintains this park. Here's an aerial view of that in a slightly different season. We did have some issues with some of the plants there in the middle that had to be replanted, but overall, great success in that stormwater project. Oops. Got a little ahead of myself there. So another project in Maryland, but in a different part of Maryland, in Howard County, we worked on this regenerative site design at the Savage Branch and STEM Education Center of the Howard County Library System. And we did a series of native gardens and stormwater strategies that were actually implemented into the central entryway of the library itself and all the way out into the parking lot. So again, using a variety of different plants in this built sort of stormwater planter that was the centerpiece of the entryway, allowing for kids to really participate in understanding and playing with water as it moves through those areas. And then a variety of different techniques around the edges of the property, showcasing other types of best management practices for stormwater, like permeable pavers in the parking lot as well, and other BMPs integrated into that design. A slightly older project that we've worked on, where we actually really focused on this idea of integrated water strategies, was at the Sidwell Friends School in Washington, D.C. And we were part of a large design team, including a landscape architect firm, Andrew Pogon, who worked in collaboration with us. We were focused on the integrated wastewater treatment wetlands that were integrated into this landscape to manage wastewater that was being produced through the school. And it was then also integrated into a stormwater wetland design that Andrew Pogon led. They were disconnected hydrologically, but from outside of that, without knowing that background, you wouldn't know that there was a difference here, and you would just see the series of wetland terraces that are both wastewater treatment wetlands and stormwater wetlands. And so we worked with Andrew Pogon to develop this design, and then really worked, because it was a school, and the school is very excited about this project and the story that the students can learn and tell, that the students actually take people on tours through the school and explain the overall kind of water system and the different components of water treatment integrated into this functional living landscape laboratory. So we have some different shots of the different gardens and wetlands in different seasons. And the students here actually use this space for performance and other types of activities through the curriculum, which is so exciting to see that embraced, and their understanding really being the basis for all of the teaching and learning that goes on at the school. A little closer to Annapolis in Maryland, we have been working on a number of different living shoreline approaches, and this is applicable across the United States, in mostly in calmer waters. But we're also, I think, exploring the opportunities for how you think about coastal shorelines on the ocean and how those can also be kind of resilient with sea level rise. But these are focused, and this particular project is focused on this inland river, and the Arundel on the Bay community had hired us to look into helping them manage stormwater. So this is a before and after on the left and then right hand side of the screen, to create these stormwater bioswales that integrated some level of native vegetation that can be functional through these different water events. And then all this water flows down towards the shoreline. And we have some images here where you see some tadpoles. So there's a lot of flora and fauna returning to these spaces with this restoration over the course of a couple of years after it was implemented. This is a before shot of the shoreline itself. So some issues with invasive species, and also just managing I think the coastal or the shoreline erosion here. So we recreated this living shoreline approach with these stepped wetlands that kind of help guide the water down towards the open water in a way where it's filtered and managed to help with shoreline erosion. And lots of wildlife we've seen out there over the years. Very exciting to see how well it's functioning and also adapting over time as plants kind of get used to the different system and the conditions there and really start to thrive. So this is kind of looking from the water side back towards the mainland and that area of stormwater BMPs. We also try to use, when we can and when it's appropriate, large woody debris, both to help with sometimes shoreline stabilization, or also just to create more areas for habitat, increasing that opportunity for biodiversity. So you see some examples of that here. We also have an opportunity in Southern Maryland, another living shoreline that's integrated into a park that was done here in Southern Maryland on Breton Bay and Leonardtown Wharf. Again, where it was really exciting to integrate this living shoreline approach with a walkway and a boardwalk that allows for people to kind of walk through this restored wetland, this tidal wetland system, and experience the wetland on both sides and really start to see the potential for that shoreline. We also had parts of that, though, that needed to have it still had to have some areas of hardened shoreline. So we integrated different types of tiered wetlands that would be kind of functional wetlands during higher tidal system times. And then also we did some restoration within the upland zone of a variety of different native species to really try to bring that story of watershed health and living shoreline potential back to an area that hadn't seen this kind of diversity of plants or the diversity of different types of wildlife that we started to see return to this site, like native birds. A slightly different approach is a project that we did at the University of North Carolina at the Chapel Hill campus, where they had this wide lawn in front of one of their older buildings, but it had a piped stream through the center of it. And we saw it as a really exciting opportunity to do some daylighting of this whole stream system, but create this interactive garden and kind of reforested space for campus community members while managing some stormwater issues that they were facing. So we did some sketches and overlays, and this was a project that had some work by landscape architects, by myself, but also engineers and our ecologists local to North Carolina, who really started to develop this very diverse planting palette. So you see a couple images here of the project after it was finished with this day lit stream moving through the landscape, but this rich palette of native landscape plants, both wetland plants and then trees and an increased tree canopy that was integrated into this planting design to really bring to life more of that native system that would have been seen perhaps in areas around Chapel Hill, right into the heart of the campus. And we've had great feedback from the university about the students and I think alums coming back and really getting excited about it. So the last project that I wanted to dig into a little bit is something closer to home here in DC and the Smithsonian's various properties, which is an ongoing project that we are currently conducting with the District of Columbia. So I do a lot of work in our urban ecology framework planning for the practice of biohabitats. I head up a lot of that work, and we've done some work in city of Baltimore and the city of Atlanta at this kind of urban scale, citywide urban ecology frameworks that can provide the basis for future implementation of different types of strategies that help both community revitalization and ecological uplift, the overall ecological improvement of conditions within the urban sphere. And it's becoming a great area of excitement because we know that many, many more people live in urban areas around the country and across the globe. And we are all being impacted by different effects of climate change, whether they be larger flood and storm events or more hot times of summer in urban heat island effects, and then sea level rise and other types of coastal effects. And so in the District of Columbia, just a couple of years ago, we started a planning project for them on the Anacostia River corridor within the district's bounds of the 500-year floodplain of the Anacostia River. And as I said, this is an ongoing project that is, so I can't get into too much of the background, but there has been some of this material has been made available online, as this project is very much engaged with the public and with the communities who live along this corridor. So we've been doing a variety of different public engagement activities with community members and really pulling their insights into this project. So this material is available online at the website here at the bottom of the screen, and Zach might be able to put it also into the chat. But I thought it would be fun to kind of dig into this approach a little bit here at the tail end of my presentation, because it is new and it is fresh and it is ongoing, and it is in the Smithsonian's backyard in DC. So again, this restoration master plan is really in order for the district, the DOEE as our client, to have a foundation for and a kind of holistic strategy for applying different types of restoration and improvements to recreation and open space in a way that is holistic and in a way that they can then seek funding to do these different projects. So this is kind of this big scale master plan to really envision the future of the Anacostia so that it can meet some very key goals that the district has identified. So those goals are enhancing resiliency, restoring habitat for native species known to be in the Anacostia River, improving water quality within the river, and enhancing public access and recreation. So similar to much of the work that we are doing in urban ecology, we take the lens, and the district similarly sees this through the lens of socio-ecological frameworks. So we're balancing and we're really seeing the interconnections between ecology and ecosystems and holistic ecological healing, and the communities who are directly impacted and who have direct needs that could be met through different practices and strategies that can be implemented. Again, in this case, the focus of the project is on the 500-year floodplain. So it is this area that's outlined in blue on this map. And there's a lot of different kind of key locations to help people key into this area in terms of the labels that you see on this map. So we had, this is kind of a 4-phase project, and we are currently in concept development. Stakeholder engagement, while it's kind of noted as phase 2 here, is really an ongoing process that's happening in every phase of the work. So in the first phase, which was completed last year, we were really using a data analysis foundation for understanding opportunity zones across the river's corridor that would address those 4 goals. And so we did data analysis using a variety of GIS data in Esri's ArcGIS program to really analyze opportunities and kind of try to highlight locations with the highest opportunity to meet each of the 4 goals. And one of those, of course, is public access enhancement and open space improvements. So besides that data analysis, we also conducted some public engagement to really survey the community about their needs and their understanding of the systems. So I'll get into a little bit of the results of that in just a moment. But then after doing that data analysis, we start to develop strategies based on public input and what we've analyzed of the existing conditions to start to look at creating this master plan of a variety of techniques, a variety of strategies that can be implemented to improve the conditions of the river, both for ecology and the native flora and fauna and for the community. And then the last phase will be us writing a master plan and that final map document. So here is kind of the basis of the 3 phases and our ongoing schedule. So we're of course in spring 2023, so about 2/3 of the way through the project. And again, all of this content is available online at the DOEE's website for this project. So I mentioned that first phase was data gathering and opportunities analysis, really focused on those 4 goal areas. And so we did, touch points with the community and touch points with the District of Columbia and touch points with the variety of sister and federal agencies who have some ownership over many of the properties that are along that floodplain. Again, here's that map with the project area and a variety of different parks or feature locations or amenities on the river. And this is just one of the opportunities results maps that was conducted in that first phase. And so you'll see in bright red and orange are the high and medium high, highest opportunity areas to improve habitat based on existing data that we had for the existing conditions of the river. Then we also did that online public survey and an online public meeting for folks. And so this is that results map that shows the community members' feedback to us that helps us start to understand their concerns, their desires, and their areas of high value of different experiences, both with just recreation and open space and with ecology. A lot of the community members who are actively engaged in the river in the neighboring communities know a lot about the ecology of this river and know the history, the long history of this river and the different impacts and the different issues with environmental justice that have affected the river and the river quality and the river habitat. So there's so much insight that we can gain from the community in this public input process. These are just examples of some of the results maps from some of the activities that we conducted during the public meeting. These are also available online for folks to look at if they're interested in. And this helps us hone really in on some of the particular areas of access and even ecological value or ecological potential that community members wanted us to know about as we start to think about the development of this holistic corridor-wide within the district's bounds master plan for restorative strategies. This is just some summary information about what some of the community members saw as priorities in thinking about the corridor, and then some further summary of what it really does here in looking at some of these themes is that you see that there is this very deep knowledge in the community, both of the importance of water quality in the river and habitat, as well as this need for improved access and safe and secure ways for community members to get to the river and to enjoy it, and to see it as an amenity for their neighborhoods, for their community, in being able to access it for recreation or just enjoyment. A passive sort of recreation is so valuable. So we had a variety of different restoration and enhancement strategies that we're currently developing because that's in process. We don't have that published yet. We are currently in a phase where actually I think it'll be this weekend, a second public survey will become live online to allow for community members to give us the next phase of input in this project. So it allows for them to really start to see some of the proposed strategies and locations for different types of living shoreline or stormwater management integrated into the landscape, or increased riparian plantings along the river corridor that also allow for access and views and increased types of amenities. I think some of the amenities that they will be able to give us further feedback on are locations for getting into the river in kayaks and canoes, and fishing areas that are on land or on decks or overlooks that are piers near the river or on the river for them to increase their activities. So with that, I think that wraps up the bulk of my presentation. That allows for, I hope, enough time for us to have some really interesting discussion and dialogue. And of course, because I didn't work on all of these projects myself personally, I may not have specific answers to every one of your questions, but what I hope to do is give you what input I can, and then I can always get back to you all with more information from some of the project leads on those projects where I wasn't as heavily involved to get you more detailed information if you're interested.
Jennifer, that was fascinating. I mean, there's so many things that you didn't know. You're doing them on a larger scale, but to me, the principles are so applicable to what we do in our own residence, our own communities, that I walked away with at least 15 good ideas. So that was really good. I'm really fascinated by the rubble garden and the idea of punching holes through concrete, because we get asked that all the time. Well, I have a concrete backyard. What do I do? How do I plant things? You know, what kind of garden can I have? And so, of course, my fallback is always container gardens. But the idea of creating patterns by punching through that cement or whatever it might be, that's fascinating. Can you tell me a little bit about the process, especially the soils that you're working with? How do you amend the soils in areas like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is one project that I did have more involvement in, so I can speak a little bit to the process. So yeah, those are great questions. And this was a really interesting project. I should say that we were working with a local environmental artist, Stacy Levy. I want to recognize her contributions to this project, as well as a local Philadelphia engineer, urban engineers. What's really important and very challenging about this site, which you may not be able to see from all of these photos, but this site was a part of this is actually decking over the river. So this isn't even solid soil below this paved area. I think back at the back of the site, there was more soil, but at the front of the site, it was actually on the decking, on the kind of old pier structure that had been built to create this space for its previous uses. So we had all sorts of considerations and a lot of we benefit, I think, because it was kind of a design build project. So we were on site with the contractors through the entirety of the actual implementation, because we were learning a little bit as we went, even though we did a lot of different testing and LiDAR use before, and we had divers from urban engineers actually going underneath to understand the structural integrity of the decking, and it was known to be fine, but they just had to check it and make sure that everything was solid. So then, yes, there were so many challenges. Interestingly, as I said, one of the challenges, of course, was that it was too expensive to break up all this concrete and to remove it from the site. So we then had to think, how do we reuse? And then in this particular case, this was more solid and variable in depth of the concrete in this particular area. So it wasn't as easy as it had been in this zone of the rubble garden to cut and to create and to pull out and add some native soil amendments here. But in this area, it became too expensive again to even cut it up in pieces. So what we decided to do was, well, okay, let's be creative. And we started thinking about how could we use this as a canvas for telling the story. And then with Stacy, we knew the importance of the water story because it was the Delaware River, and because there has been the Philadelphia Water Department has done amazing things to really integrate green infrastructure into most of the urban sort of planning work and really start to implement those strategies. So we wanted to keep building on that story of water and water management and bringing it back to the surface. So then I think we were talking to even, we had different union labor represented on our team as was required in the city of Philadelphia. And there was a specialist who actually had a very special tool that could make these holes. And so we had him on site for very particular hours of time for over the course of a couple days of 1 week, drilling these holes. And we decided it would be fun if different size holes were created, and then to create this dendritic pattern that those holes would fall upon. We had seen some great examples of other types of urban renewal and brownfield redevelopment designs that have been occurring over the last 20 years, for sure, all over the US and in Europe. And so some of those designs play on this idea of decay and urban decay becoming part of the design story. And so we built on other examples we've found of how do you play with this idea decay. And so we said, let's plant these. We added a little bit of soil in each one of these. We also thought of plants that wouldn't need very deep roots. I don't have the palette names with me now, but you can even see, surprisingly, even though we didn't really plan on the deep roots necessarily working, goldenrod did fine. And so you see a variety of grasses and flowering sort of forbs here that were planted. But we also did some more succulents, some things that could be in a condition that's really difficult because this is hot in the summer. It's going to be dry. You know, after a rainstorm, it's going to dry up faster. The evapotranspiration is going to be pretty high. So these had to be very hardy kind of urban plants on the more upland side of the species guild, because we knew that it would be pretty hard conditions, tough conditions. But yeah, it was a really exciting process. And honestly, in many of the landscapes,
beautiful. I mean, that's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
Yeah, you would never know that was an answer because you didn't have the funds to be able to remove it all. I'd rather do that and this, just the patterns. It's just so enlightening to think that you could, take something that has little to no use and make it as beautiful as this, and functional too. It looks like the water is really directed well to, I'm assuming there's some type of bio or cistern that's underneath there that would collect the water.
On this end, it's a bioretention area. So it's got special bioretention soils that allow for it to slowly infiltrate. But yeah, all of it's kind of flowing overland and through the dendritic pattern. This is another interesting kind of design challenge. This side of the site was asphalt instead of concrete. And so asphalt was very easy to cut into. So we were able to carve because it was softer in being able to cut and manage in this space. So we really reacted almost real time to some of these different design constraints on the site, but it allowed for us to get creative and then really find some exciting ways to address it.
Well, it is creative and it is exciting and it's beautiful. Did you have a problem? You mentioned that one area had a lot of invasives that are coming back. So of course they probably have a maintenance team. Did you have to do something to the soil before you planted what you wanted to be able to get rid of a seed bank or whatever else that's in a seed bank. For those that don't know, all seeds drop. And then if you don't if you don't cut the flowers off and the seeds off before they drop, then you have a seed bank in your soil. So did you have a problem with that?
I think there was probably some seed bank that we weren't able to manage, which is why it came back to some degree, because we often like to try to use native soils as our foundational point, no matter what, and then build into that with some amendments, a little bit of extra carbon, maybe a little bit of other types of sandy soil if we needed to in the BMP, because you want to make sure the water is flowing through and percolating. And so I believe there was some challenge with that seed bank and some of it, but we did a full invasives clearing of the entire site before construction began. And that was really not part of our scope, but was sort of the responsibility of the managing nonprofit who owns or kind of manages this space. And I believe they probably did spot treatment with some very specific herbicides. But again, being this close to the river, even that has to be done very, very carefully. So I think most people would err on the side of, you know, a light treatment versus too much chemical here in order to also make sure that we didn't kill everything in the seed bank, because we want to keep what might be native. And I think what we found is that in this rubble meadow area in particular, we're seeing amazing regeneration every year as those native species establish. And we've actually even did a seed collection afternoon where we went out and we collected seeds from these plants, and we had done an extension of this further south of just the rubble meadow along the trail, and we planted it with some of the seeds we'd collected from up here. So it was wonderful to have that regeneration active in our implementation strategies.
That's fascinating. It's almost like, of course, everyone knows the High Line. It's a new look, you know, to be able to bring it down on a level where people can walk through it, enjoy it, have movement in an area where it was just concrete. I really enjoyed this type of thing. I'm looking at the questions now, so pardon me looking away. But do you have any pilot projects that are focused on urban backyards or urban areas that change lawns to gardens? It wouldn't have to be residential. It could be, of course, another area. And I think you did have a picture of something where it was mostly lawn to begin with. Oh, the university.
The high school.
The high school.
Yeah, yeah, at the Green Streets Academy. Yeah, and we're seeing more interest in that. We have done some programs with some of the local counties in Maryland. I think Montgomery County and Rockville, Maryland. Years ago, we developed some guidance for turf conversion and other stormwater BMP design strategies for residential. We don't do as much residential design, but we have advised municipalities on integration of stormwater BMPs, and one of those being turf conversion. I think, yeah, you know, it's really interesting. The Green Streets Academy example is a nice one because it was just plain turf. It was a very urban condition in Baltimore City, and we're still kind of, it's only in its first couple of years now. Well, actually, I guess with the pandemic, it's probably in year 5 now. And so it continues to shift and regenerate and self-organize, which is what we like to see. Is we like to watch and see what's happening and not necessarily change anything unless there's invasives to be managed, of course, and then we might advise the high school. The students are very involved. They actually did the planting day for this. Unfortunately, I don't have the picture of the planting day. I thought I did in here. And so they are very active in this space, but it was just turf and kind of urban soils turf. And I think there were some limited amendments that we did, but not a lot. But I think just being able to create, and then we did, I'm pretty sure in this case, we had container plantings of some of these native species, as well as an overseeding of kind of a seed mix of natives. But really those container plants are most important in kind of getting some of those established species.
Yeah, so in this project, did you, again, punch holes through the existing material, which of course would be turf, to be able to plant, or did you remove all the turf ahead of time?
I'm pretty sure in this case, the turf was removed. Okay. So a certain couple of inches was removed to get the turf out to start. Yeah, in this case, you know, it's likely that usually helps I did my graduate work in the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And at the time, we were also seeing a lot in the Midwest in particular, a lot of influence on this idea of maintaining with burning, with controlled burns. And that is another way of, I mean, you have to work within the rules of your municipality and also within very strict rules associated with wind and humidity and temperatures in doing a controlled burn. But a controlled burn can be a great way of clearing a site or kind of creating the beginnings of a site to renew itself with a native palette. And it sometimes releases some of that native seed bank. But again, that you can only do that in certain locations.
Right. I'm not doing it in my townhouse community with an HOA. I can tell you that right now.
Right.
But it is interesting to think of the approaches that we take to be able to turn something over to a more wild area. And there are a number of choices out there to be able to handle it, which is good. So there's another question. This one's a long one. So I'm working on a community scale suburban landscapes with a focus on restoration of the native plant communities and wildlife habitat. Finding there is a conflict when trying to safeguard shy wildlife with requests from Parks and Recreation folks to activate the areas with active recreation, boardwalks, hardscape that disrupts the shy wildlife. Do you have restoration project examples where the prioritization of wildlife and its habitat protected from human disruption was achieved? I think maybe Anacostia waterways might be
maybe. I think that's the beginnings there. Now I can't, that one is ongoing. So I think we don't have a lot of built works yet. We actually are doing some other restoration work in the Anacostia watershed that's not part of that particular project, where we're doing wetland and shoreline restoration and river restoration, stream restoration. It's a very fine dance. There's a balance there, but I think there are strategies that one can use to help support that. So one of the big parts of, again, going back to these principles of landscape ecology, is understanding the impacts of fragmentation in a landscape, in a forested landscape in particular, but in all sort of systems. Fragmenting those landscapes creates less kind of core protected areas. So you have more tiny little pieces. And so you don't have that interior forest where more sensitive species are able to exist more happily or even can reproduce because they need a certain amount of shelter, perhaps. Every landscape is different and every species has its own requirements. But I'm actually going to talk about an example that Biohabitats didn't do, but I experienced in Ann Arbor in grad school, because I think it's a really lovely example. So I think there are ways of doing this. So there's a meadow that's part of the Arboretum Botanic Gardens in Ann Arbor. And it has been restored. It's this enormous meadow, native meadow. And there are trails, but there are also pretty large parcels of intact meadow. So fragmentation was considered. I think if you look at it in an aerial, you'll kind of see the way the trails have a circulation. You get to experience a lot of the meadow, but there's also pretty large, not huge patches, but patches of significance where there's going to be that interior core area of prairie in this case, where there will be the possibility for ground nesting birds who use that as habitat because it's far enough away from the edges that it gives that interior space. We did do a project in Buffalo, New York, a number of years ago on a brownfield where we did this master plan for redevelopment of the brownfield in Buffalo along the Buffalo River, where we knew that the Kerner blue butterfly had very specific habitat requirements. And we could fulfill those because it was a minimum of 10 acres of meadow for the blue butterfly. So if we could have trails around that 10 acres, that may be too large for some sites, right? In the case of the person who's asking the question today. But if you can find a way of figuring out some of the species requirements for a certain amount of area that is needed for their habitat, and then see if you can't weave in the trails or the boardwalks in a way that gives people opportunities to visually access those spaces, but not intrude into those spaces. Now, important design considerations or programming management considerations include not allowing for dogs to be off leash in
Yes.
areas when there might be sensitive species, especially during nesting seasons. It is about when you mow those spaces, because you probably will want to mow them, but only once or twice a year, not during those nesting times. So you really have to know the very specific species needs of the species that you are likely inviting into the space, because the last thing you want to do is create a vector for impacts on that species in designing that space. But I think it can be done. Another example, a great example, Longwood Gardens. We didn't participate in this design, but it is lovely. Their meadow restoration, incredible. Large intact patches with a wonderful trail network. In their case, they benefit from having a change in elevation, so you can be up on a high ridge looking out over the meadow. And you can see the birds just kind of coming out of different portions of it. And there's a stream corridor that runs through the middle of it that they've made sure to buffer appropriately with woody plants and other types of native species for that stream. So there are some great examples, and it really is about thinking about fragmentation, thinking about how circulation moves through so people have views, and then maintenance and programming. One final word on maintenance and programming and materials is the use of lighting in those spaces.
Yes.
Is particularly critical in making sure that you are sensitive to impacts on dark sky and the habitat needs of animals who are migrating through these spaces, who get very confused by lighting when they're really trying to rely on the full moon, the cycles of the moon, and they get totally messed up in habitat, in reproduction. Even humans are impacted by lighting. And I think we have to realize that it is significant and important in designing trail lighting, especially, to be mindful of that. We can create safe spaces, but we should also be doing it in a way that understands the impacts on habitat when we are intersecting with restored landscapes.
Right. That's so good. I mean, Longwood was the one example I was thinking of because I've visited many times, and that meadow is absolutely beautiful. And they have a way to be able to integrate art shows and all kinds of programming and still keep the shy wildlife safe and keep the habitats available for them. So I echo your response with doing a survey to make sure you understand who's actually there, so you can understand what type of habitats they really do need, that they function. And the butterfly one is just fabulous to think about, what does this butterfly really need? There are certain animals that humans, they're so used to being with us, we don't have to worry about it at all. But how often do we think about what are the requirements for that little blue butterfly that happens to be in the area? So those are the ones that you really do have to survey, find out if you're serious about creating something that is going to encourage that habitat. That's the first step. In any project, we do surveys all the time. We created a garden at Anacostia, which is of course on the waterway, and that was something we looked at. Who could possibly visit there? It's in a very urban area, and it was exciting to learn what was there, and then what we could plant to be able to service those things that were in the area, and yet at the same time inform the visitors what they might see, not trying to always give the positive views of habitat and the positive views of visitors when we have so many negative views of things. My neighbor, for instance, hates snakes. She wants flowers and other things, but she hates snakes. So it's very hard to say, well, you can have this, but you can't have this. There's no way that if you do invite people, or not people, if you invite wildlife, you're going to invite all wildlife, not just the ones that you want to visit and see. So,
exactly. Yeah. And to your point, signage. And so I wanted to pick a couple of the examples at the Leonardtown waterfront. The signage tells the story of different components about the history of this harbor zone, about the restoration itself, and then about the species. There's two signs that really focus on the species.
Yeah, that's a great way if you are doing a public project to be able to put those. Of course, we do it. We're a museum. We always want to interpret what we're doing, but just to be able to let everyone know what's going on. I love it when people put signs up for like National Wildlife Federation. So you know that that's a backyard habitat that's telling your neighbors what you're trying to do. You're not a messy neighbor. You're trying to create a habitat to go along with it. Yes, but all of these are beautiful examples that really bring so much to the community. I'm fascinated too, is how do you do interviews with the community? So you first go to them and listen to them instead of just come in and make a design and put it down. I love that, because I'm a proponent for students designing their own gardens at schools. So because they know how they use it. So how do you do that in a community? So it's like walking softly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so there's a lot. I would say our City of Atlanta project, we did what we call, well, it was under Atlanta City Design, and we did City Design Nature, the component, and it was an urban ecology framework for the City of Atlanta. And from the beginning, we identified, and the city identified, community engagement would occur from the very first meeting all the way through the planning process. And so we devised a variety of different activities. This was pre-pandemic, but I think we're getting back to that now in sort of a post high, I guess, the highest issues of the pandemic have passed, if not the pandemic itself. But anyway, we're getting back in person with people, but we can also do this online. But what we did in Atlanta is we set up all these different rooms with different types of activities so that we could really get all of their senses involved in hearing their relationship to nature in the city. And I think that is applicable in any site that you might be working on. Even if you're doing community design with your own neighbors in your own neighborhood at the residential scale, you get together and you talk about, what does it smell like? And we had pulled plants and soils from different natural areas around the city of Atlanta into little jars, and we had them smell them. We, of course, warned them, if you have any allergies, don't smell these, but if you don't have any allergies, go ahead and try this. What do you smell? What does this make you think about of your memories of it, of like City of Atlanta nature ideas? And so we did smell, we did a storytelling booth where we asked people to draw diagrams of different ways that they experienced nature and whatever nature meant to them in Atlanta. We did a verbal storytelling, like an NPR on the spot. I'm interviewing you. What comes to mind, and tell us. We had all these audio recordings that we took, and we had a variety of maps, and we had mapping activities where we said, okay, here's the city of Atlanta, find where you live, or find that park that you love, tell us more about it, and tell us how you get to there. Because it was not just about increasing the ecological kind of potential and the opportunity to preserve, as Atlanta continues to grow in population, preserve this important kind of component of the city's identity, but also how people traveled across the city and interacted with green space. So there was this part of, how do you connect to nature? Where do you connect with nature? So a variety of different activities. We tried to, again, involve their senses, involve them kind of physically, so they weren't just like sitting at a table, but moving around a space. And then, of course, at the beginning of the pandemic, our first phase of work with the Anacostia, it's all virtual, but we have a variety of different online activities we've created, map activities and surveys asking for opinions and perceptions of relationships or issues on the river that they want us to be aware of. And so we can collect that data from those various virtual activities and then start to organize and analyze that data, see patterns, see themes, and then also see kind of spatial stories and patterns that are kind of arising from their use of map point activities.
We just got a question that popped up that I think the explanation that you just gave would help them out. How does one overcome our love affair with lawns? How do you convince somebody that holes punched in concrete with grasses coming up through is a garden, is a designed space? And I think between offering signage to explain, doing meetings ahead of time, meet with your neighbors and talk to them. And, certain people love lawns, and we're not going to change that, but you can change the type of lawn that you plant as well. It can be like we have a bee lawn here in front of natural history, just to show people that it doesn't have to be the perfect manicured turf that we all think of as a lawn. Well, not all of us, I certainly don't. But have those meetings, have those talks, have those signs, relate to the people in a way, understand that lawns are very important. If you like bocce ball or croquet,
Yes.
you might really want that. That's a family tradition. So thank you for all those great designs and ideas. I'm excited to try some of them out in my own neighborhood.
Yes.
How they work. I think that would be
Absolutely.
terrific. But
Yeah.
Jennifer, this has been exciting.
Yeah, one final kind of closing word. I will say to that point about lawns and the desire to have some areas that might remain lawn. There is my advisor and a landscape ecologist, landscape architect who's done a lot of work on this. Is this Joan Nassauer has talked a lot about the idea of cues, visual cues, that there is an intention in this, even if it's messy, even if it looks wild, if there's an edge. And so maybe there's a mown edge between your green space that's staying lawn and your new wild space that's that restored native planting or meadow or prairie or whatever it might be. But as Joan points out, it's about that cue, that visual cue, that these are maintained landscapes. There is intent, even if it looks different. And so I think her writings on this idea are really key in what has informed my work and many designers' work of how you integrate these native landscapes with the more conventional or more kind of turf lawn as is needed for, as you mentioned, a variety of activities. Yeah.
Right. So important. So terrific. Well, thank you. You definitely gave us food for thought and images that I will remember. And if I ever get the opportunity to do something similar. So thank you for that. I hope you enjoy your big day at work, and hopefully we'll see you around the Anacostia neighborhood.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.